Yeah, I have a good friend of mine who, again, back in February, was probably one of Big Whiskey's best customers. The restaurant 2 floors down from me. Um, he loved Big Whiskeys. He loves Big Whiskeys, but in February he was there more than once a week. He's in a category right now where his fear level or his apprehension with public places, Big Whiskeys is going to have to work a little harder to get him to come back. Not that he's not going to, but right now you can't automatically assume that he's coming back just because the restaurant opened. And if you've been talking to people in the community, that's one of the things I've heard the last couple of weeks is, I don't even know if they're open or this place is open. How much are they open? There's a lot to deal with and handle in every situation. Every customer's perspective is different on how they want to treat it, how fast they want to return. So again, back to understanding that, and Sarah makes a good point. Analytics tell you a lot about a lot of different things, specifically looking at them now for behavior patterns. When are people looking at your information? Are there different times of the day now based on this? Obviously, when we were all locked down, people were spending 6-7 hours a day, maybe watching television, streaming it or broadcast because they were stuck, right? So as we locally open back up, what happens? Just those questions you need to ask yourself, again, as you build that strategy and that plan. As we move again around the cycle to the what, the point I would make here, that core value proposition, that's really what you're about, what your customers rely on you for. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but is that different? Is that different now than it has been in the past? Or how is it different? What are you providing? What are you providing your customer right now? I talked about empathy earlier. Are you an essential service? You're looked at probably differently than maybe some other services who aren't in that category. And I don't mean to make this sound inappropriate in any way, but there's an opportunity depending on your status in that situation now. What have you been doing the last 6 weeks? Has that put you in a spot, as Sarah said earlier, maybe with a different segment that you weren't anticipated before? Or your services that you offer, are they slightly different based on COVID? Again, whether it's curbside or ordering online. I mean, the grocery industry obviously had been trying to pull us along to ordering your groceries and then picking them up. Well, they're not pulling very hard now, right? Because there's a certain segment of the population that's the only way they want to get their groceries. Sarah, I'll let you comment on that.
And Darren touched on this a little, but also being open to change with your business and making sure that you're evolving with this. So if you see that you can put something online and people will order it now, go ahead and go with that movement and keep it going with COVID and start marketing that. And your core value proposition will change a little bit, but it's changing for the better. So just being sure that you're open to what your consumers are wanting. Even if it's hard to change, we know change is hard sometimes, but even if it's difficult, if you're looking at your analytics and you're talking to your clients and they're saying, we like this, we want more of this, then take the time to listen and change that core value proposition a little bit to fit those needs that they now have.
Yeah, and we've seen with a couple of our clients in the financial industry that obviously online banking exploded because it had to in part. And people's apprehension, customers' apprehension with using those tools, again, before this happened, they were forced to try them. And a percentage of them now are going to fall in love with that and not go back. They're going to embrace it, where you may have had to work really hard from a resource standpoint, if you want to talk about dollars spent in marketing or advertising, to convince a customer to use an online product of yours, to feel safe about it. COVID took care of that for you. They had no option. If they wanted to do certain things with certain people, they had to do it online and be okay with it. And a percentage of them have experienced it and are good with it and will stay. So again, the idea, if you're one of those, if you're an entity that's experienced that, is that's an opportunity for you to take advantage of and fully vet and find out again that profile, that customer, if generally the older the person, the less likely they are to embrace technology. I make that statement as somebody who's closer to 50 than they are 40. So I consider, unfortunately, myself to getting closer to the older demographic. I don't like change as much as I used to. That older demographic, again, was forced to do some things differently. And a lot of times that's a very attractive demographic because they have disposable income. So a lot of people are targeting that person anyway. So take a look at that and see what opportunities present yourself. Present.
Case
Go
in
ahead.
point, Frank Reisick is on. He's been on these coffees, so we definitely a different. And Darren said maybe an older demographic.
Yeah, there he is. There he is.
Has been forced to use it. I always say, my dad is one of those. He can now order something off of Amazon, which I thought was the easiest thing in the world. So just keep looking at your consumer and what they are doing now, what patterns do they have, and how can your business evolve with the consumer's needs and wants.
The where part of the conversation and related to today is again where the message is. Any solid strategy, any communication plan is got a good idea of where your customer is going to be. We live in a very segmented world. Gets more segmented every day. Spend a lot of time trying to make sure that your information is in the right place. I tend to use direct mail as an example all the time of people consider their mailbox full of junk mail. Well, it's not junk if the entity that's targeting you has done a good job of figuring out what you like, right? What do you prefer? How do you prefer to get your information? When do you want it? The mailbox has made sort of a comeback in the last few years, in my opinion, and COVID has probably helped that along as well, where if you have this segment figured out, if you know your persona and you understand them, direct mail is still a great example of ways to reach them. Dick's Sporting Goods understands I like golf. In my mailbox, Dick sends me golf stuff. I don't hunt. I don't get camouflage offers from Dick's. I get golf offers. It's not junk to me. Might be junk to my neighbor if our mail got mixed up, but it's not junk to me. Sarah mentioned the digital world. Obviously, the increase in utilization the last 6 weeks online, again, creates a perspective, a shift in what you should look at. Where are you putting your money, your resources, your message, so that, again, you're reaching that segment. And again, have you defined the segment moved? Is it older? Is it younger? Geographically, is it different? Those are all things to evaluate so that your resources are giving you the best chance to again, reach out to the customer and reassure them that you're someone or something they can rely on.
And when it comes to marketing dollars, you usually have your marketing budget. There's no need to stop because we're in phase one. We're coming out of this. Maybe your budget has changed, but just look at your budget. Where is it now? What can you afford? And then it's time to reassess where your money is going. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately about Google AdWords, Facebook ads, and it's much cheaper to be in those areas right now. And I was telling Darren the other day, it's like the stock market. The stock market's gone down. When should you buy? Right now, and hopefully it'll go up later. And that's similar to Facebook ads, especially a lot of the big businesses, national businesses, they're still there. They still are running ads, but they've just pulled back their budget. They pulled back their ad spend. So that gives more opportunity for smaller businesses. And one of the stats I got was before COVID, if you were running a Facebook ad, it would cost about $50 or $60 to get 1,000 impressions. And right now it's between $10 and $14 to get those same 1,000 impressions. So maybe if Facebook ads is something you're not used to or you haven't tried before, maybe look at it and try. Maybe Google ads, if you want to go there, try something different, especially as we've been talking about, people are on the internet more and they are, you have a lot more screen time. So look where you're putting your marketing dollars, look at your budget, and figure out right now, as this is all happening, what is the best way to go? And what do you think will work for maybe the new demographic that you're talking to, or just whoever your clients are right now?
Yeah, and I'm again back to the old school mentality. I think television broadcast has had some opportunities again because we were locked in. Now we're coming out of it, but you look at data previously, the last 6 weeks, people have been much more consistent in. If you want to take the news, for example, obviously trying to find out what's going on, so consistently watching the 10 o'clock news or the news in the morning. So there's some value there, again, with certain segments of your demographic. To Sarah's point, we've had we've had clients spending half of what they normally had to spend to get the same number of impressions online. And people did pull back advertising, but if you just take a look at events that have not happened in our world the last six weeks, concerts, just take concerts, and how much volume events take up in the advertising bucket, and they all went away. So internet usage went up, and the number of people talking to you while you were on the internet went down. So perfect storm, not always going to be the case, obviously. We all hope all those events and those dollars come back, but right now, it's much quieter than it normally is on all mediums. So that's, again, back to the location, just making sure you're in the right place at the right time. And that leads to the last point on the diagram, the have a plan, the when. I try to stress this more important than it's last in the conversation, but extremely important. Always is to have a plan regarding communication, marketing, advertising, obviously. But right now, as you come out of this, whether you're the business owner or the person in charge of your marketing department for your company, you need to make sure that you have a plan and understand what the goals of that plan are, because most of us are working off a restricted budget or resources that aren't what we anticipated them to be. And as Sarah said, it's very important that you continue to talk to your customer, but it's important that you have a plan so that you don't go a wrong direction or a perceived wrong direction to where it ends up hindering you more, and that dollar or that resource you have to spend isn't used effectively. So I can't stress enough the importance regardless. And the plan, I'm not saying you need a 12 months seems like an eternity, right? 12 weeks seems like a long time right now. Maybe 12 days. Your plan is short or as long as it is. Have one. Make sure you understand, and the people that need to understand what the return on that investment should be, make sure they understand that going in so that you can build momentum and keep going.
And so I think too, one thing with your plan is your plan is going to evolve through each of these phases of COVID. We don't know, the next phase is coming out soon. So I was thinking about, 5 different things that you can do through each phase to help you and help your clients. Number 1 is make sure if you have an email marketing list, which I think is so important, is make sure you've sent out that email. What is your next plan for the next phase? Let your clients know what your plan is. Make sure you update your Google My Business if you're going to have new hours. We talked about Big Whiskeys. Through this whole time, Big Whiskeys has updated their hours 3 times. So making sure that everybody's updated on what it is, because it may be something different next week. You never know. So updating the Google My Business, make sure your Facebook page is updated, the about info, and then put a post up there and just make sure you tag that post. And then the other thing is, if you are running ads through each phase, if you're running Facebook ads or you're on Google, assess your ads. Is this ad in line with what's happening with COVID? So make sure every time your plan is changing, you update all those things and are telling your clients, your consumers, what you're doing and what your plan is. It just helps to reassure them that you've got this under control, and it helps them, like Darren said, them to feel secure in their business and feel safer if you're going somewhere or if they're going to come into your store.
And I'm putting up one more graphic just for um, share with you guys on, and I hope you can read it. It's something, again, I've used with clients in the past. Your business identity, you see in the middle is Death Valley. It's where you're organizationally going to struggle if you haven't identified where you are. And I'm not suggesting maybe that you've moved from a dominant to a niche provider, but again, more important now than ever is to understand what role you play. Um, are you Walmart or are you Whole Foods? Are you, what is, it's, there's no wrong answer other than not identifying it and sticking yourself in the middle there and in Death Valley, if you will. To follow up what Sarah said and to bring it back around on the circle of the auto industry this morning, and I've seen them before this morning, but as I was getting ready for work, the commercial came on, and I'm going to say it was Ford, but I'm not sure. Honestly, but the offer was 0% for 84 months, which I've never seen 84 months on a car loan before. But I would go back and say if they'd have ran that in February, 0% for 84 would have been in the first 10 seconds of the ad. It was in the last 15 seconds because they spent the first part of the commercial reassuring us that we're going to be okay and that the auto industry is going to be okay and that they're here for us. And the way they're going to show us they're here for us right now is 0% for 84, right? So the tone has changed. There's still an offer in there, but it's not near the car sale offer that it was, again, 6-8 weeks ago. So those things are just examples and paying attention to that sort of thing. So I guess closing that circle again, just asking yourself those key questions. A lot of the answers may not have changed, but assuming they haven't is where the mistake can happen. So ask yourself those questions, build you a plan, and then execute it. People they buy on emotion, regardless of what it is. Just understand what the emotion is right now and try to provide again, something to relieve that pain that we've been talking about. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, I think, at this point. Sean, if...
Hey, Darren, if I could, the last visual that you tried to put up
didn't work.
Did not. So if you want to try that, just so folks could take a look at it.
Is it up now?
There it is.
Sorry. Again, what I was saying is this is just something we use sometimes when trying to help determine where a business is. Both sides are it's just sort of a strategy. If you're on the left side, again, my example I usually have used is Walmart's generally a dominant competitor. They're trying to price point themselves into your life. On the other side, maybe it's a little more of an intimate. I use Whole Foods, even though there's not a Whole Foods around here. The idea that it's a little more of an intimate situation or how they built their structure. It's just making sure you identify which one you are, so that related to marketing, it's important so that your message is speaking to the right person. Again, the last thing, Walmart went through a period of time several years ago where they tried to get a little too niche-y. They had a phase where they didn't slam and offer right in your face when you walked in Walmart, low price every day. They spent a period of time where they were trying to maybe get away from that a little bit, and honestly, it didn't work. And they realized what they are is 2 grocery carts full of stuff once a month, right? That's who they are. The person who wants a different experience is going to go to Walmart. So I'll leave it at that. Is there anybody from Walmart on the call? I should have checked probably.
I think you're in good shape, Darren.
Okay.
Hey, if I could ask Sarah and Darren, you spoke briefly about the flexibility. So can you cover that again as being, the need to be flexible in the short term with your marketing message?
Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you need to always hold true to who your business is and what you feel about your business. but you do need to be flexible in the marketing. And again, I use Big Whiskeys as an example. You know, at first when the reopening started, it was they were closing at 8 o'clock because nobody was there. And now it's the marketing is we're going to stay open a little later because people want to come and drink and socialize and do that. And so you do have to be flexible in what you do. And the biggest thing, and we keep saying it, is listen to your consumers because they're the ones telling you how to flex your message or how to flex your marketing. And if if you're not quite sure, just go out and ask some people. Like, when I talked to Darren about Doug and, how he loves Big Whiskey, but he's waiting to come back, that's a good message to hear. That makes sense. And that's something that Big Whiskeys needs to address. So be flexible, but make sure your ears are open and you're listening to what your consumers and clients have to say.
Yeah, and I would just add that so many businesses have already shown their ability to be flexible, right? They were forced to deliver their model differently, whether it's a restaurant or a grocery store or a hospital or a credit union, whatever it may be. They were forced into a different environment. And just like the consumer was forced into it, it take the opportunity to realize, hey, what are we doing now that actually is a better way than we were doing it before this? And then all you do with that is transition that to your communication plan, your strategy, and make sure people realize that. You know what? I was talking to somebody yesterday who has been buying wine from Barvino out of the box because Barvino couldn't be open, but they could sell wine by the box or by, I assume, maybe even smaller quantities. But they've been, and they felt good about it because why? They were helping a local business during this time. As opposed to maybe when they were buying it at a restaurant or at a grocery store. So both parties were flexible in the sales cycle. And I think that's what Sarah's talking about is the planning of it is, I mentioned the shorter time frame. You do have to take this and look at it right now, 4, 8, 6, 12 weeks. What can we do? And then adjusting it as we reopen or the world comes back to whatever new normal is.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, as you're evolving and, the wine thing got me thinking, if you're finding something that's working for your clients, make sure it is easily accessible to other people. So if Barvino is able to sell wine online, that should be the first thing people see on their homepage right now is we're running this special. Don't make new people who haven't done it before go through a bunch of hoops to get to that checkout process. If you see something's working, make it really easy for people to get there and to purchase whatever it is.
If I could throw out, and I apologize everyone for for the volume. So I don't know what's going on there, but could I pose another question that was in the chat box? Could I both have you speak to shopping locally? So trying to hammer that in and focus on that message.
Sure, I'll go first. I think, and I'll throw a picture. I see Gary Wilbers is on here, and I spent a lot of time with him on this exact topic for a long time, right? You can just shake your head, Gary, right? He used to sell cell phones, and Gary supports a lot of things. Since he's sitting here, I'm just gonna use him. He supports a lot of things, and the idea was making sure people understood that Mid-America Wireless would support things locally, and by supporting him, you supported the community, right? And that message, it goes back to that point you made earlier. What's in it for me? So whether it's you selling locally, what's in it for me is what it's all about. And right now, that's probably a little heightened compared to other times. Same point. What's in it for me? If it's in it for me that I don't want to see local business A not stay, not be here tomorrow, right? So what can I do to help them? As long as the business understands that's not enough to say I'm local. Okay, well, it still has to be what's in it for the customer. It has to be convenient. It has to be safe. They have to feel comfortable with your product. The product has to work, right? It doesn't replace those, but it should give you right now an added advantage that non-local companies don't have. Does that make sense?
And probably one of the hardest things, especially for retail, local retail, is all the big, like Amazon. So again, it's trying to find ways to make your business and your product easily accessible to the community. Having that curbside pickup or letting however many people in at a time where you can compete with those bigger businesses. And the other thing I say too is if you are saying, I'm a local business, support me, and our community is so good at this, but then you need to go out and show that you're supporting other local businesses. And people will see that and they'll respect that. And, just like the takeout bingo by Doug, and I can't remember who else, but, people doing that, they're showing that they support local business, and that is a heart warmer, and you want to go out and support them. So it's just community helping community. And then, like I said, making it easy for Amazon. We know it's so easy. It's one click and you got your product in 2 days. So just for your clients, make it as easy as possible to get whatever you're selling.
And sometimes Amazon isn't in 2 days, right? I mean, this has interrupted their supply chain a little bit. You could order a book and get it in 2 days. You can order a book now and it might take you 2 weeks because they've got some supply chain they're running into. So there's another opportunity maybe for you to be a little more efficient than the big boy.
Yeah. Order now. We'll have it ready for you in an hour. Come pick it up.
Right.
You can manage.
Let me pose another question that was in the chat box. So with people, are you seeing that businesses maybe just waiting this out to see what the new normal is? And so basically not changing their marketing message currently. Sarah?
I think you have to, I can see where people would want to wait it out. And like I said earlier, change is difficult, especially for some people. But I think this poses a great opportunity for businesses to evolve because your consumer is changing. You should be changing right along with them. So I think actually taking this time and using it to grow your business in a different way is really important.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think, again, that the word flexibility comes to mind. I think it's, we've had some clients who've stayed out there, for lack of a better term, and continue to talk. And there's nothing wrong with that, to remind people that you're where you are. But again, I think what we talked about this morning is it's the message that you put in there. Again, what emotion are you speaking to? One of the people that works with me was using the example of when this first started, and I don't remember this billionaire guy posted from his yacht that he was quarantining himself out in the ocean somewhere on some big yacht. Well, he got hammered socially because right now is not the time to talk about abundance. I'm a sports fanatic, and I'm really getting tired of watching 1984 basketball games, by the way. I really want something current. But I think you want to watch Major League Baseball fight right now over salary cap and revenue and salaries. Bad look. Had a player come out and say he wasn't willing to play because $1.2 million wasn't enough for him to risk his health. He can be right in that stance. I think saying that publicly is probably not the way to go, right? We got people who don't have a job because of this. So I think you have to be careful to the situation, to the element, to the time, right? Marketing and talking to people is totally, I think, a great idea. It's just what message are you portraying? What emotion, what's your angle? So I got a little bit off there throwing that sports thing in there. But again, I think that's a big problem that we have with coming back is everybody's right individually in how they feel about this. If somebody doesn't feel comfortable going out for another 6 weeks, it's going to be hard to convince them otherwise, right? But all you can do is talk to them about what you're doing individually so that maybe their fear lowers a level. And when they get ready, they pick you for whatever that is.
Maybe a good little segue here, and I'm going to touch on something that is maybe down in the weeds, but mask or no mask. And maybe for a service business or a walk-in business dealing with customers, any thoughts on that? I know it's probably obviously a personal preference, but any thoughts from the business side?
I think, especially depending on your industry, looking at what it is, I would always err on the side of caution. It's better to make people feel comfortable. And again, I'm guilty. I haven't worn a mask. Like when I go to the grocery store, I just go in, but that's what I'm comfortable with. So as a business owner, you need to look and see what is going to make your clients feel comfortable. I think
That's a tough one, Sean, to take a public position on, whether it's 56 people on a Zoom call or 5. But no, I would use, as Sarah mentioned, I got my haircut. The most exciting thing that's happened to me in the month of May is I got my haircut. And I don't have a lot of hair, but I was really excited to finally be able to get a haircut. And when I went, I asked the lady who cuts my hair, it was last week. I said, what's it been like? What have you found? She goes, well, we told our customers, here's what we're doing. And if you're not comfortable with that, we understand, okay? But we're going to do these things to make sure we're creating a safe environment, we think, for our customers. And I just asked her to the mask point, this was, say, 3 days into them reopening. So however many people they had in, she goes, we had probably 10 people wear masks, and again, it's back to everybody's right and how they feel comfortable. What you see a lot again in these guidelines, or at least what I see, is here's some suggestions, here's some things you can do. Outside of the core stuff of keeping your distance, washing your hands, we work with Capital Region, obviously, and they have been preaching, physical distancing, wash your hands, be smart about it. And beyond that, it's, again, a level of comfort, right?
And again, it's looking at your consumer, and I would err on the side of caution always you're going to have different clients, but should try to make people feel as comfortable as possible when they're in your environment, so they feel safe and they want to come back.
And it does tie into, again, what you're hearing on a lot of messaging right now is people are saying that exact same thing. They're telling you what they're doing so that you feel okay about buying their product, using their service, right?
Yeah. And I think it's important to update your message as you're going through this. We said it again, but keeping people informed. So that way too, when they walk in your business, they know what to expect. They don't feel out of place. They know, hey, everybody's going to be wearing masks here. I'll bring mine with me, or, so keeping people updated and informed so they feel comfortable doing business at your place of business or doing business with you.
Very good. The one thing that in this post-COVID, if there is such a thing, is I think that will stick is, with most everyone when you walk in somewhere that they're sanitizing, basically shopping carts or anything that maybe you touch. I think that's one thing that in the winter months when you have the regular flu season, that's something that I think will stay. Is there, to the group, we have our experts here. Are there any other, and you can jump on audio if you like, are there any other specific questions for Sarah or Darren here? We've got about 15 minutes. We don't have to run till 10 o'clock, but please post your questions if you have them.
I think Laura St. Clair, I saw you had a question earlier because Laura is in a service industry that she goes to people's homes. And so she said there's been hesitancy. But again, I think it's just continuing to let your clients know what you're doing. And if you do come into their home, the safety precautions you're taking, that they'll be safe with you in there. And so just being as open as possible with your clients about the precautions you're taking and then let them decide, yeah, come on in to my house. Let's get everything organized, or okay, let's wait 6 weeks and then you can come and help me get my home in order. So communication is always key, I think.
Any additional questions from the audience? Frank, I see Frank waving.
I would like to comment on the local concept and relate it to Rotary and Youth Exchange. I see what Rotary is doing as the local international interface. And what we are doing locally is giving an opportunity for our high school students to travel to another country and to give students from another country the opportunity to travel to the US. And how this is relevant to COVID is there are many disruptions in this process. We may or may not be able to have youth exchange next year, but local and international are connected by Rotary, and I see several Rotarians in the audience.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, with the exchange, like you said, the exchange, the travel, overseas travel, even state-to-state travel, as you're seeing it in some of the vacation areas that locally, and said, yeah, well, for the folks coming in, we don't want those folks coming in, and staying the week here. So yes, Frank, a lot of things have changed and will continue to change. I don't see any additional questions. If you do, just raise your hand or post it. But Sarah, Darren, any last thoughts before we close it out for a Friday morning?
I guess it just goes back to, with your messaging, do what you feel is comfortable and do what you think is best for your business ultimately, because that message will be conveyed to your clients in a real and authentic manner, and they'll get that. So just be true to who your business is in the end. That's what's important.
Yeah, I let me put my chamber hat on for 30 seconds and just, again, thank the staff at the chamber. This is, we talk about ideas that may stick. This one may stick. I've tried to get on one last week and couldn't get on because it was full. Participation in the Friday Coffee virtually has succeeded physical participation prior to COVID. So this might be an idea that goes beyond into the new normal, as you said, Sean. And also, again, community-wise, I think excited it's May 15th. The county opened up May 1st. Our spike has been flat. For what, if you find value in that number, it was 1 on May 1st. And as of yesterday at 4 o'clock, it was 1 active case in Cole County. So a lot of times we don't want to lead with that data because it doesn't keep the fear high enough, in my opinion. So I think that's good news. Means people are adhering as they go back to work or go back to whatever they're doing, that they're, I think that's where it is. It's on us to do this. We can't expect somebody else to do to get us back going. We individually have to do this. So I think that's a good sign that 15 days in, we haven't seen a extraordinary outbreak or spike in those numbers. So that's a positive sign, I think. I'll leave it with that. Thanks again for the time this morning, everybody, and for joining in, and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Darren, for your time and talents this morning. And you're right, Darren. We're very fortunate that the numbers, the positive cases, have been very low here in Cole County and mid-Missouri. I would just like to say thank you for everyone that participated this morning. Sorry the sun's not out. I thought we might have a chamber morning, but I will guarantee you it will be out at some point in time. I'll just leave it at that. So, hey, everybody, thank you very much. Good to see everyone, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.